Hello, friends. This is Andy Frecka, host of 915 Talk. The conversation you're about to listen to, I believe, is especially important if you call this borderland of El Paso and Juarez home. You'll hear the story of Joe Hankins. I do hope that you'll stick around and listen to the entire conversation. It'll be well worth your time. In advance, I do apologize. There was an issue with my microphone. However, happily, you'll mostly be listening to Joe. So without further ado, this is 915 Talk.
915 TALK.
The world is looking at El Paso.
What will we say to the world? Live from the KELP studio in El Paso, this is 915 Talk.
And now your host.
Good afternoon, beautiful citizens of the borderland. This is 915 Talk, and I am your host, Andy Frecka. I hope that you're enjoying your Friday afternoon. We are in for another hour of live radio, straight from the KELP studio, situated right in the heart of the world's largest borderplex. So wherever you are today, whether you're in El Paso, Juarez, maybe you're up in Oro Grande, Chaparral, maybe you're one of our beautiful listeners out in places like Clint or Las Cruces or Deming, wherever you are, welcome to 915 Talk. And in the intro of the show, as I often mention, it says the world is looking at El Paso. What will we say to the world? And today we have a true son of the borderland. And I have been looking ahead to this conversation with such anticipation now for, well, since I met him, really. And normally, what I do during this part of the show is I give a long list of credentials for the guest. And I'm not going to do that today. I'm just going to tell you really what his name is. And throughout the next hour, you'll find out who he is and why I invited him in. But there are so many stories from around the border that we need to hear. And there's another message in here, and that is whoever you are here on the borderland, God sees you. He sees your story. So without further ado, wherever you are, let's put our hands together for Mr. Joe Hankins. Joe, welcome to 915 Talk.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it is interesting to me. We had lunch at Ernie's.
Oh man, I love the tortillas.
Yeah. Over on Industrial, not here far from where we're sitting right now at the station. I think it was only like 2 weeks ago. Yeah. And we got to talking and enjoying the huevos rancheros, the tortillas, the whole thing. and we got to talking, and I said, Joe, you got to come into this station, and
yes.
I'm so glad you made it. So today we're going to be talking about a story from the border that I think people need to hear wherever they are in the world. And I think a good place to start off with is, I think it was 40 years ago, roughly.
Yes.
There was a group of Americans, and they were driving from Juarez back to El Paso. Yeah. And those of you who are from the borderland know that those lines can get long, and often you'll see kids from Juarez who are selling snacks or whatever the case could be to those people who are stuck in traffic. Yeah. And this group of Americans in the car saw, I think it was a 7-year-old, 8-year-old boy running through the cars, running around them, selling some snacks, and the Americans looked very concerned when they saw this little boy. Yeah. Why did they look concerned?
Well, that little boy was me. Yeah. And so, whenever I tell that story, my wife couldn't believe that I've actually gone through that experience. But during that time, my mom really was struggling financially, and she needed help. Right. And it was a man that had a concession stand there, and he would hire these kids from the neighborhood there. And the neighborhood is Bella Vista. That's the name of the neighborhood that I lived in. It's right over the border, right next to we call it the Bomberos. It's like the fire station. There's like a fire station right across the bridge there on Juarez Street there, and it's literally about 2 blocks. It was 2 blocks away from where I lived, and so I would walk there, and he would hire me, and I would go and sell candy and stuff like that, and was able to, make whatever. If it was 25 cents, 30 cents for that day, and take it back to my mom and stuff. And that was enough for, they call them bolillos. There's like a white bread.
Okay.
And so what we would do is we would take that white bread and buy a quart of milk. And we would have bread and milk.
Bread and milk.
Yeah.
That was your dinner.
After
selling.
Yeah, after selling all day.
Yeah. So I have to. We are in Radio Land. People can't see us.
Yes.
Right now. Mm-hmm. So I have to bring up the very obvious, possibly awkward subject.
Yeah.
Why were people concerned specifically when they saw you?
Yeah. So just imagine this. Imagine Michael Jackson at 6 years old walking around Juarez selling candy.
Right.
You have an African American kid with an afro just walking around, and just chicles, that means gum in Spanish.
Okay.
So you would go walk around and try to sell, and so for me, I was very confused. Just thinking, why are they looking at me like that?
Yeah,
at the time, that's
you're at home.
Yeah, that's my home. That's
right.
my neighborhood. Everyone in the neighborhood knows me.
Right.
And so I was very puzzled. Like, why are they looking at me like that?
Yeah.
And then after a while, it was almost embarrassing that they would look at me with this blank stare, like,
wow.
What is that kid doing here?
Right.
Like he does not belong out here, that he get kidnapped or,
Right.
what in the world?
Right.
Why is he here? But for me, automatically, I'm thinking, well, it's because I'm poor. They're looking at me because I'm poor. It wasn't because I had an afro and I was selling candy. Can I wash your windows?
So, wow. Yeah. I mean, it is interesting. Kids, accept their environment as just being normal. That's their reality, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's where you're at. So you're there. And I guess the next question is, how did you end up in Mexico?
Yeah. So to start off with my first name, my first name is Jose.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, in my driver's license, it's all Jose, and so, I got to the point that I would always explain, why is your name Jose when you're black? You know what I'm saying? So I got so tired of just explaining that. So I was like, just call me Joe. Joe, So my mom was from Durango, Mexico. She moved to Juarez, just for more opportunity, and so she became a waitress at a bar, and it's called at 77 Club there in Juarez.
Yeah, I hope none of our listeners know about.
I hope so.
This is Christian radio.
Yes, so 77. Yeah, you know what? It's no longer around, so that's good. Yeah. So
maybe some old timers.
Before they got saved, they were probably visiting there. But anyway, So my mom moved to Juarez, and she became a bartender.
Okay.
After a while, just for the tips and whatnot, and so there's this black gentleman, from Memphis, Tennessee, that was a truck driver on his way to California. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna stop in El Paso, and I'm gonna go over the border and have me a couple of drinks.
Okay.
So he went and had a couple of drinks, and fell in love with the bartender.
Wow.
That was my mama. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so every time he would go to California, he would stop, go over the border.
How often was he going to California?
Well, they had 7 children, so pretty often.
Wow. Yeah. Are you the oldest?
No, so I'm like There's my younger sister, Liz, and then it's myself, and then we have, of course, the other 5. Yeah,
Okay.
so
Wow.
I'm like towards the bottom there.
Towards the bottom.
The bottom, the youngest, the bottom of the barrel.
I bet that came up pretty often growing up.
Yeah, there was times where I would get in trouble, of course, and I got to the point where, I was a great. That's how my brothers thought. This guy's going to be a good athlete, because I would run, and my mom couldn't, she couldn't catch me, and so they would literally had to tag team. All my brothers would go and just and they would catch me, and
the lions chasing the tigers.
Yeah.
They all line up at different parts.
And I was a runner, man. I mean, around the neighborhood there in Juarez, I would be without my shirt on, with my diaper at 1.5, 2 years old, just running around in circles, barefooted, So
So
yeah.
I have to tell you this because those of you who are regular listeners of KELP, the station's been going through a transition, and one of the things that we had to do was update our insurance policy. And so we had our insurance agent come in, and Joe was with the insurance agent. And then, we just had a meeting, and it was great. We worked out all the insurance issues. And then Joe's like, hey, let's have lunch at Ernie's. So we go to Ernie's, and I didn't tell you this, but we sit down and someone calls you, and you're speaking Spanish to them. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, that's so cool of Joe that he learned Spanish. But actually, what's super cool is that you learned English.
Yeah, I learned English.
I was like, I need to be like Joe and learn Spanish.
Conviction settled in. It was like, wait a minute. Hey, okay, I don't know the whole story, but yeah.
Right. So you're growing up in Juarez. You're selling snacks or gum, chicle there to the Americans stuck in bridge traffic. What else is going on in your life? What's life like?
Another story that I love to tell, and normally with my kids and my wife, like over dinner and stuff like that, we used to be in the side of the bridge. And we would look at the Americans and go, penny, 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 and they would throw coins, and you had to race. You had to tuck tail and go get that coin.
Wait, in the traffic you're doing?
No. This was like, it was like a dirt area, like right over the bridge.
Okay.
Right next to the river there.
Okay.
They would throw the coins there.
Wow.
And so we would run, and so for the Americans, it was like, oh, that's pretty cool, entertainment. That was entertainment. I mean, It was crazy. But man, I would come home with a bag full of coins, man.
Wow.
It was like desperation. Like, I want some bread, bread and milk.
I can imagine. So you're growing up in Juarez. How did you come to El Paso? Like when you were growing up, you weren't going back and forth, right?
No. So we normally that was home to us. So one day, my dad would leave. He would come home for a couple of days and then leave, and then and we wouldn't see him for 3 months, and he'll come in for a couple of days and then leave again and stuff. And so one day he shows up with an African American lady.
Okay.
And an African American child that looked a lot like us.
Wow.
So we were like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Wait, so you're all at home in Juarez with your mother.
Yes.
And Dad shows up with another woman.
With another African American woman.
Okay.
And another
child that looks a lot
like us. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here?
Okay. So what was going on?
So come to find out that was his wife from Memphis, Tennessee. That was his wife, and and so he had confessed to her, and he said, I have 7 children in Juarez. And so, so she was like, I better see. I want to see this. Yeah, I want to see this. So they made the trip.
That's the best possible outcome to that conversation.
Yeah. Well, the reason for his confession was that my dad was a heavy drinker.
Okay.
And he was vomiting blood and urinating blood and stuff. He had cirrhosis of the liver, and they had given him weeks to live.
Okay.
And he was a young man. He was probably like in his mid 40s.
Okay. Wow.
And so he had confessed to his wife, and he's like, if something ever happens to me, I want you to know these 7 kids that I have in Juarez.
Wow.
And so upon his confession, they ended up getting a divorce.
Okay.
He marries my mom.
Wow.
And 2 months later, he dies.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was pretty crazy. It was a pretty crazy situation there. But and so I grew up with a lot of, I guess, bitterness.
Sure.
Just resentment, a lot of hate. I just didn't understand a whole lot. I didn't understand why. I didn't understand why I had to go through that. Why is it that that the man that used to provide for us is gone and he's young?
Right. So that's what you were angry about.
Yeah, I was angry. And then my mom, literally, while I was going through all these transitions, my brothers and my sisters were also going through the same thing. But 2 years later, his ex-wife now comes back and she helped us gain citizenship.
Wow.
So it took us about 2 years, and so we moved to El Paso. I think it was in 1984, around there.
1984. How old were you at that point?
I was 8 years old.
You're 8 years old. So you knew you were going to America at some point, and I assume you were talking about it with your mom, with your siblings. What was your expectation?
For us, we really got picked on in Juarez. We were very different.
Okay.
We're they used to call us names like there's this like a cartoon character. This cartoon character that's black and with an afro and pink lips.
Okay.
They call him Sorullo, and so they used to call us that. Oh, no. And so it got to the point that my brothers were always fighting, my sisters were always fighting, and so we felt like
fighting just in the neighborhood.
Yeah, because they were always constantly being made fun of and stuff, and so they had to protect themselves and whatever. And so for me, I'm thinking, okay, well, things are going to get a lot better once we move to America. Yeah. Because there's people that actually look like me.
Sure.
And so when we moved back to El Paso, it was a lot of the same, because now we're black and we don't speak English. So it's like, so I didn't feel like I was enough. I didn't feel like I was Mexican enough. I didn't feel like I was, black enough. Okay. And so back then they didn't have ESL, and so I didn't feel smart enough. I was in resource class, and special needs classes.
Wow. Yeah. So like what grade did you just went into a grade appropriate to your age? Or?
Yeah, so I went to the first grade. Okay. I mastered first grade.
Okay.
I repeated it twice. Yeah, man. So but it was a pretty trying time for us as a whole, just as a family. Mm-hmm. I would never forget when we first moved here from Juarez. My dad's ex-wife helped us get an apartment. Mm-hmm. And in this apartment, it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 900 square feet. Okay. And there was 7 of us there. Wow. And I slept in the living room on the floor. I told my wife.
It says cozy.
Yeah, cozy. Yeah. It was a lot cozier than I was used to, tell you that.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so.
It felt cozy even after Juarez.
Oh, yeah, Juarez. Juarez is so crazy, man, because we spent a lot of time with my grandma. Uh-huh. And my grandma lived in Napra in the Napa area, and so she had an outhouse.
What is that area for those who don't know?
For those that don't know, it's where the UTEP football stadium is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's right across the Rio Grande.
It's what you see when you're driving down I-10.
Yes.
It's not the most elite.
Yeah,
section
it's
of
pretty
Florida.
like third world, man.
Okay,
It's pretty
gotcha.
crazy.
So you spent a lot of your childhood there.
Yes,
with your grandmother.
with my grandmother and stuff,
Okay.
and she had, you talk about not having carpet or tile or anything like
Right.
that. I mean, it's just dirt.
Okay.
We had an outhouse, and it was so scary to go to the outhouse, man. It was just like, I'm going to fall through, man. It's just crazy. Okay. But going back to when we first moved out here, I mean, that apartment was like luxury to us. Mm-hmm. Even though I've slept on the floor, I didn't get a bed till I went to college.
That was your first bed?
My first bed
Was in college?
In college. Have you ever seen the movie Blindside? It's Blindside. It's with this football player. I forgot what his name.
Yeah.
Michael Orr. And so Michael Orr went through very similar story.
And he struggled with.
Yeah, just
like
poverty and grew up in the projects and stuff, and he didn't have a bed until he was in college.
Yeah, I was watching a movie a couple years back. It was about some refugees, I think from Somalia, and they come to the States and they're given the house with beds in it. And then they show the next scene. They're all on the floor. They don't know how to handle it.
That would have been me and my brothers and sisters.
Okay, so there's 8 of you in this 900 square foot apartment.
Yes.
And it wasn't easy.
It wasn't easy, and and it was such a blessing our first Christmas, that we spent here in America, because we didn't have anything. We didn't have furniture. We didn't have pots and pans. We didn't have anything. Wow. And my mom was very frustrated because she didn't have a job. I am so grateful for America. Mm-hmm. Just the fact that we pretty much grew up without a father, but the government raised us.
Okay.
Just through food stamps and WIC and Medicaid.
Okay.
Medicare, all that. I mean, I am so grateful for those services. All my brothers are all productive. They're all working, working for the city or whatnot now and contributing to the community, good citizens. But for the most part, we're all very grateful for what this country has done for our lives.
Yeah.
But our first Christmas.
I'm going to just say, I think it's a good reminder.
Yes.
For a lot of us, who I think a lot of our listeners most of them are conservative.
Yes.
And to be reminded that sometimes government help works.
Oh man.
And it kind of makes it worthwhile. It's encouraging to hear.
That was Daddy there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Daddy would visit us once a month. Social Security and food stamps and it's I'm very grateful for this country and I'm just very grateful.
That's amazing.
Yeah, our very first Christmas, there was some just individuals that we didn't know.
Okay.
We're all sitting in. They gathered us in the living room, and we're all sitting there, and we're thinking, what in the world happened? Now we're in trouble. They taking us back to Juarez, to Mexico.
Was that a fear you had?
Oh, yeah, man. I live with a lot of fear, just because of the unexpected. We just didn't know. We're in a strange environment, and we just didn't know. Yeah. These people were very well dressed, very well groomed. And so as they're there, they gathered us. All of a sudden, they come with these big bags. And we're like, what in the world? What's in those bags?
So you're not thinking anything good.
No. I mean, automatically you're thinking, dude, we're in trouble.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Was this Christmas Day?
Yeah, that was like Christmas Eve.
Okay, Christmas Eve. So I just want to point that out. That does, give us a window to your childhood. When people who are well-dressed show up with bags on Christmas Eve, you're not expecting anything good.
Are they going to put us on those bags and take us back to the Juarez? Yeah, man. I mean, I've never, ever had a birthday, me or my siblings.
Wow.
Like, oh yeah, let's buy a cake and let's sing you happy birthday. Even to this day, it makes me feel very uncomfortable.
Wow.
Just my birthdays or just anniversary, just all that is just
So
like we
when's
just
your
never
birthday?
said. August 16th.
August
It's right
16th.
around the corner.
Okay, August 16th, just around the corner. For those of you who know Joe Hankins, let's be sure to make him extra uncomfortable this year.
That's funny. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna be tortured. Well, you better just get your couch ready because I'll be at your house.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so they come in with these bags. So
Yes.
they weren't taking you back to Juarez, I assume.
Yeah,
You're still here.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden they say, Jaime, is Jaime here?
Okay.
And my brother's like, my older brother, he's like, he raises his hand and he's like, here? And so she gives him this gift.
Uh-huh.
And see, he goes off to a corner somewhere. I'm like, oh, okay, what the heck? What's going on? And then all of a sudden she says, Martha, is Martha here? The same thing. She goes off to a corner. I'm like, why are they going off to a corner? And then they go down the list, Ricardo, Alex, and then they get to my name, Avelina, and then Joe, Jose.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, what in the world? What's in this box?
Right.
And so I take this gift and I go off to a corner, and I'm not kidding you. When I unwrapped the gift,
Yeah.
it was a brand new pair of Pro Wings.
Wow.
No one in my life has ever given me a gift.
Wow.
And it was the people from that church right there on Hercules and Diana.
Uh-huh.
I think it's Mount Franklin. Is
Okay.
it? And it is a Baptist church.
Sounds right. Sounds good.
And for the first time in my life, I got a brand new pair of Pro Wings
Wow.
of tennis shoes.
Wow.
And so for me, I was like, who would do that? How do they know my size? Like, how did they find out? I was so puzzled.
They're from the government for sure.
Yeah, the government. Yeah. So I was very. I mean, to this day, I'm just so grateful for the hearts of people. The people that these are God-fearing people. I
think this is also just a good encouragement for a lot of folks who are listening. I was talking to someone, I think just a day or two ago, and they were talking about gifts they make for children in Juarez for Christmas. And I think a lot of times when we do that kind of thing, we don't see, a lot of times we don't even see the child.
Yeah.
And for sure we don't see them as an adult.
Yes.
9 times out of 10, it's very rare. And to be reminded that this kind of giving matters.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Every year I used to think, how in the world do these Americans know that we need crayons and pencils and And so the other day, my wife and I are sitting. My wife serves at she works at the office at First Baptist.
Okay.
And so we're sitting in church, and so they were collecting like bags of crayons and just different things so they could pack up and send to Juarez, and I'm in tears.
Wow.
And I'm like, man, that's what they did for me.
Right.
It's all these people. That's where their tithe goes to kids like myself in Juarez.
That's amazing.
I'm just so thankful.
Right. So you're growing up. It's a tough situation. You got into sports.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
So I'm gonna have to go there.
All right.
So my mom got a job at a bar here in El Paso. I mean, that's what she did.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of things that go on in the bar that I mean, as a mother, all she's thinking is I need to make sure that I meet the needs of my children. And so she's doing things that maybe she you know, maybe she normally wouldn't do.
Right.
You know, and so therefore, you know, there was times where men would come home and we would leave the apartment, you know, and so
I mean, a man would come home and you just want to get out.
yeah, I mean, the only man that I would see her with is my dad, and it would upset me when I would see different men coming into the apartment.
Sure.
And so I didn't want to be there, and so I would go to this park. It's called Logan Heights.
Okay.
And there was times where I would just sleep at the park.
Wow.
You know, and
How old are you at this point?
yeah, I was 9 years old, 10 years old.
Wow,
Yeah.
you're sleeping at the park.
Yeah, just, you know, and so to me, it was, we could do whatever we wanted. There was no rules, you know. There was not a curfew, you know. One time I spent the night at a friend's house, and his mom was like, "Well, you just stay over, just stay till Sunday," and I stayed till Sunday.
Yeah.
And no one was worried for me. Yeah. I come back Sunday night. They're like, "You were gone, huh?" Yeah, duh.
Yeah.
I was gone for like 2 days.
Yeah, I feel that. I'm pretty sure my parents didn't know where I was from 1993 to 1996. It was a different time, you know. Anymore, we have the Life 360. We're tracking our kids everywhere.
That's
you know?
right. That's
It was a
right.
different
Oh
time.
my gosh.
Yeah. So you were gone.
Yeah, I was gone, and so there was times where these events would happen. My mom would come home from work, and I would disappear. I would go to the park, you know, and so there's one time I went to the park, and it was about 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm sitting there, and I get tapped on the shoulder. And it was this man by the name of Coach Henry, and Coach Henry.
So I'm sorry. What, you said, you might have said this is morning, evening.
This was I would say in the afternoon.
Oh, you're sleeping in the afternoon.
Yeah. No. I mean, I'm predicting. Okay, mom's on her way. You know, she's coming home, and so I don't want to be around. I don't even want to meet these guys.
Okay.
And you know, the craziest thing is that I used to live right there on Keltner Street, right next to Dyer and Fred Wilson.
Okay.
And there's a Church's Chicken there. And so these men will find out that she had 7 children. And they would always buy a family platter from Church's. And so for me, to this day, I hate Church's. You know, so whenever I see Church's, I'm like, I do not want Church's.
That's too much.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so she came home earlier that day and went to the park and I was just sitting there.
Okay.
And this man tapped me on the shoulder.
Coach Henry.
And he just like, "Hey, you're a big boy. Do you play football?" I didn't know what football was. I thought it was soccer. You know, I'm like, I play no soccer. No, football. And then he's like, "Look, come here." And then he kind of showed me what it was. They had just finished practice or whatnot. And then and so he took me. He's like, "I'm taking you home." And so he took me to the apartment. I mean, and there was no answer. I mean, there was, I guess, you know.
Yeah.
My mom was in there, but there was no answer on the door. And so, but he told my siblings that he wanted me to play football, and it was going to be over $100-some and stuff. And we didn't have that money.
Yeah.
So Coach Henry, he said, "You know what? I'm going to pay for you."
Wow.
And so he bought me cleats, bought me socks, and got whatever I needed. And that's how my football career started with this man.
And how old were you at that time?
I would say about 10 years old.
So you're 10 years old. You're a little bit big for your age. He sees this. He sees some athletic potential.
Yes.
And you begin playing football.
I began playing football. And so for me, I just didn't get the concept. I didn't know. You know, it's like, what are you supposed to do, okay? You know?
I don't think that's unusual for 10-year-olds who grew up like watching football. I watch some of these younger kids. I'm like, that don't look right.
Yeah. It's just, it was crazy. But then I got it.
Okay.
And he said, "Just hit this guy as hard as you can," and it felt really good. I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
Yeah.
And for me, I thought, I was like a time bomb.
You're like, I'm allowed to do this?
Yeah, I won't get in trouble for hitting this guy. It's like this little guy that made fun of me while I'm walking to school and stuff. Yeah. Okay, I can hit him as hard as I want. Okay, and so it was really cool. Uh-huh. And so it got to the point where it became like a drug to me. Wow. It was like therapy, and so I became a headhunter at 11 years old. Wow. And so that's how it was. And I really liked football. It kept me out of trouble. I looked forward to football and stuff. And for a minute there, it was therapy.
Wow. So what position were you playing?
I was playing when I was younger. I was a linebacker.
Okay.
And then once I got older, I went from a linebacker to a nose guard and a fullback.
Nose guard?
A nose guard, yeah.
Wow, okay.
I was the shortest, smallest nose guard in the nation when I was at New Mexico State. Yeah. So it was crazy. It was crazy.
So like if we were to pull up a video, you would look different on that line.
Oh yeah. It was like, who's that midget? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're playing football. It's keeping you out of trouble.
Yeah.
You have some of your speed that you developed as a toddler. And
chasing coins and yeah.
Yeah. So where did faith show up in the middle?
Yeah.
Of all this?
I'm playing football. I go into middle school and it keeps me busy. And then my freshman year, I'm actually at my eighth grade year. This man named Tony Shaw.
Okay.
He was a head football coach at Urban High School. Mm-hmm. They named the stadium after him.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it was him and Rick Hernandez, his defensive coordinator. They went to Canyon Hills because that's where I played. And so when they showed up, they were there to scout me. I didn't know. I'm thinking, okay, who are these men? Asking and knowing all this information about me or whatnot. Okay. Well,
like how were they scouting you? They were watching you. They
were watching me at. They would go to our football games and stuff, and so they were just talking to me afterwards, and they wanted me to go to Urban High School and play football for them. But for me, I'm thinking, okay, well, they wanted me to show up in the summer. And so I'm thinking, I don't have money for the bus because I live from Wilson and Dyer, and Urban High School was a distance. Okay. And so what Coach Shaw would do is he would pick me up and take me to his house so I could. That's illegal, by the way.
I wasn't going to say it. My wife works at a store. Like, the alarm bells are going off in my head. This isn't right.
Yeah. And so he would take me and I would cut his grass. And he would give me money.
Oh wow!
And so before you know it, some of the and I was so grateful, man, because these men really helped me out. These coaches, they took me under their wing and whatnot, and they would allow me to cut the grass for them, and after I was done, they would take me to there's what is it called? It was called Silver Streak.
Okay.
It was like a burger joint there on Dyer.
Silver Streak,
yeah, man.
Is it still there?
No, it's gone. It's up. They have a Peter Piper pizza there now. Okay. Yeah, so yeah. I mean, we would go there and they would buy me a hamburger and fries and a drink. And so to me, that was like heaven. It's like, wow, this is cool. So that was the summer of my freshman year. Okay. And so I'm thinking, man, this is so cool. And while they would go and take me home, they would give me a couple bucks, after cutting the grass and whatnot, and they would feed me, and they saw where I lived, but the neighborhood where I lived. But I was always so ashamed. I was afraid that they would drop me off at home and see my mom, because she was always under the, she was an alcoholic, right. So sometimes I would get embarrassed and stuff like
Sure.
that. So I would always be asked to be dropped off like maybe 2-3 blocks away. So I don't want you guys to meet my family, you know. Yeah. No, just drop me off right here. I got to run a quick errand, you know. You know, and so that's how it was and stuff. So that was the summer of right before I went to Irvin.
It's amazing they took that interest in you.
Yes, I'm so grateful. God has always put men like that in my path, and to this day, I'm good friends with Rick Hernandez. He's still a mentor to me.
Yeah.
I love that guy. He's like a father figure, and so when I started football season that freshman year, there's this man by the name of Eddie Torres.
Okay.
Coach Torres, he was like a golf coach, and he's like, hey Joe, come over here, boy. Do you want pizza? I was like, yes, sir. Of course. You know, it's like, God, that's awesome. Pizza? Yes. All we had was beans and rice at home, you know? So I was like, yeah, heck yeah, I want some pizza. So he invited me to his classroom to eat pizza, not knowing that he was doing a Bible study. An FCA Bible study.
Okay, Fellowship of Christian Athletes.
Yeah, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And so I walked in thinking I'm getting pizza, and I walked out with Jesus.
Wow.
Yeah. I've never heard that someone loved me.
Wow.
And hearing that for the first time, it was like it was a better drug than football. You know,
And that was your first meeting you went to?
that was my first meeting. I gave my life to Christ August 16th on my birthday. It was on a Wednesday, August 16th.
It was
I was
on
14.
your birthday?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I was born again that Wednesday, August 16th at Irvin High School.
Wow.
So Jesus didn't find me at a church. He found me at a public school. That's crazy.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. So for those of you who are just joining, you're on your way home on this Friday. We are here with Jose, also known as Joe Hankins. He's sharing his story of how he grew up in Juarez and then moved over to El Paso. And he also did share that celebrating his birthday makes him feel super awkward. But we did get out of him that his birthday is August 16th. For those of you who know him, he goes to First Baptist.
Yes.
And so please, all our First Baptist listeners, look for Joe on August 16th. And we just found out it's not just his earthly birthday, it's his heavenly birthday,
Yes.
August 16th. That's so amazing. So you're there at the FCA meeting. You give your life to the Lord.
Yes.
Now what?
You know, so I've always struggled with just a lot of insecurities. You know, just I never wanted to talk. I was kind of like a loner.
Okay.
And partly was because of my accent. You know, I don't look the way I sound. And so it was a lot worse, I guarantee you. It was a lot worse. You know?
It was a lot worse.
Yeah. I mean, but so I would never just. I always had a hard time just speaking with anybody. So I battled a lot of insecurities. You know, just not meeting the mark.
Right.
You know, I couldn't find my place in life. And so for the first time after receiving Christ in my life, I felt like I had an identity. Like it was okay for me to be me.
Yeah.
You know, and I've just, you know, I was always ashamed. Just, you know, all the question marks that I had in my mind, maybe they were for a reason.
Right.
And I was going to see what that reason was in serving Christ. Yeah. So at that time, it was like, now what? I think that that just giving my life to Christ, I know that there was a peace that I've never experienced in my life. You know, a satisfaction, and I just wanted to see. I just wanted people to feel what I felt, and I started inviting like football players to church.
Okay.
I was like, I don't know the Bible. I don't know scripture, but dude, you need to come to church with me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
That man will tell you about Jesus. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know him yet.
Yeah.
I'm still learning him, but
Right.
dude, he made me feel so good inside, you know.
Right.
And so I would use my platform in football to take football players to church.
Yeah. I love that. How often we overcomplicate evangelism.
Yes.
Sharing our faith with others. We feel like we have to know everything 1st. It's just like, hey, I was like this, and now something changed. Come check it out.
Yeah. And that's the thing is that for me, I never knew how to share my testimony, how to tell people about Jesus. You know, I knew how he made me feel and just a satisfaction that I felt. And so I didn't know how to share that. But what I tell my son is that you're a walking billboard, you know, and so for me, at the time, Irvin High School was ranked 7th in the state of Texas, and I was a freshman starting on the varsity.
Wow.
You know, and so for me, that was huge. That was a tremendous platform to use.
Sure.
And so these people wanted to know, it's like, okay, we don't see this guy at parties. We don't see him, you know, hanging out and cussing and doing different things.
Right.
We know his family. We know his family, and we know how, you know, how they are.
Right.
But why is this kid not like that? And so that curiosity led these individuals to church.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're a freshman starter on the 7th team in Texas.
In Texas.
Wow. And
I mean, we were really, man, we would have 9,000 people show up to the games.
wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. Back in the day, I mean, it was like Friday Night Lights. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
8,000 or 9,000 people
Yeah.
for a high school game
Yeah.
in football.
In football.
American football.
American football.
In El Paso. And are you already a nose tackle as a freshman, or
Yeah, so I was, they had me as a nose tackle.
as a
Yes,
freshman?
As a freshman.
I have to ask.
So-
I just have to ask, how much did you weigh? Like, how big were you?
You know, as a freshman, I was 225 pounds.
Okay,
I've always been a heavy duty.
Okay,
You know?
okay. I was picturing like 130 pounds.
Yeah.
So you were heavy duty. You fit in high school.
I fit in, and it's just crazy because God blessed me, I guess, with a strength that was abnormal.
Right.
I was the
okay.
strongest teenager in Texas my sophomore and junior year. Yeah. So
Wait, what?
Yeah, I was the strongest teenager in Texas my sophomore or junior year.
Okay.
You know, I was squatting. You know, at the time it was over 700 pounds.
What?
You know, yeah, it was benching over 300. You know, so it was, yeah. So the strength that the Lord blessed me with and the speed, it just made it easy, I guess, to compete for a spot. And
Wow.
And
So that's amazing. I feel like that's a mic drop moment. You know, so,
yeah. So
I don't know if any of our listeners are impressed, but I'm impressed.
I think it was the empathy that the Lord had. You know, it's like, this guy can't talk. He doesn't say anything. So you know what? We're just going to give him a little bit of Samson's, a strength, and hopefully we can use that platform to win some of these people to Jesus.
Right.
You know, so,
No,
yeah.
that's amazing. So you go through your high school, then you went on to college.
Yeah, so I go to Irvin. I become like all district my freshman year. I was only in high school 3 years.
Okay.
So
You were making up for your first grade.
My first grade, yeah. I really liked the first grade. So I had to repeat it.
You didn't like high school so much.
Yeah, so
You're in and out in 3 years. I like
the ironic thing is that Coach Eddie Torres' wife was a counselor. Mm-hmm. And she took me under her wing and she said, Joe, you don't want to be 19 years old when you graduate.
Right.
So you need to go to summer school because you don't want your senior year to be not playing because you're too old.
Yeah, I love that we're bringing up the subject because you said you came to El Paso, I think, when you were 8.
Yes.
And then you did first grade twice. I was like, how old was this guy when he graduated from high school?
Yeah.
His counselor worked it out. So
My counselor, man, I'm so grateful for her.
Yeah.
So as Eddie Torres' wife, Miss Torres, she helped me get right academically, so I could graduate with my class.
Okay.
Yeah, so whatever I did, I had to do it in 3 years. Wow. So my freshman year, I started on varsity. My sophomore year, I was all state, honorable mention, and the same my senior year.
In Texas.
From
El Paso.
From El Paso. Yeah. So it took me 3 years. So, I've always had a difficult time reading. Just understanding what I read, just the language barrier. And so when I took the SATs, I failed it. I failed the reading part.
Okay.
And so I felt like an idiot. I was like, I'm the biggest dummy. I had the New Mexico Lobos offered me a full ride scholarship.
Oh, wow.
And all I had to do was pass the test. Well, guess what? I didn't pass the test.
Oh, no.
And so I was bummed and stuff. And so, I was like, I might as well go and work at a warehouse somewhere.
Yeah.
And so the recruiter called me and told me, we have a college in California that you could go to, and you could work on your grades, and possibly you could advance and come back to the Lobos.
Okay.
So they they got me in touch with Long Beach City College. Okay. That's how I ended up in Long Beach.
Okay.
Yeah. So from there I went to Long Beach, California.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you ended up in New Mexico.
Yeah.
So you got your grades up or whatever you needed to do to pass that threshold.
Yes.
And you became the smallest nose guard in the nation.
Yes.
The 225 wasn't impressing anyone anymore.
Yeah, it was, but, when I was in Long Beach, it was so amazing because I went from being this kid that never spoke.
Yeah.
At Irvin High School.
Yeah.
To going to Long Beach and seeing Samoans. I never knew. It was like, I knew two Samoans, but I didn't realize they were Samoans. Okay. I thought they were just big Hispanic guys, but nevertheless, I went to California and these Samoan guys were out there and they talked funny, just like me. So I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so I was like, yeah.
That's great.
So I went out there. My first year, I really struggled. There was the strongest teenager in Florida, and there was another guy that was from Hawaii, the strongest teenager in Hawaii, and I sat the bench for the first time.
Oh.
And so I'm sitting there, I'm hating it, and so now, I'm seeing failure face to face. Just sitting on the bench, and there was a different set of challenges there. I turned into a crybaby. I'm not starting. I'm thousands of miles away. My family is not here. And so I'm just in depression my freshman year. But once those guys graduated, I went ahead and started and became the defensive player of the year.
Wow!
And I was able to earn a scholarship to New Mexico State.
Great. It's amazing. This conversation has flown by way too quickly.
Yes.
So, Joe, I want to ask you, you grew up on both sides of the border here in our borderland community. You grew up in a very rough situation. What do you see today among the youth in El Paso?
I see a group of kids that are really longing for an identity. Mm-hmm. I see kids that are extremely passionate. Mm-hmm. That if they're if you could just plant a vision, these kids would just take off.
Right.
There's a bunch of great kids like in different neighborhoods from different socioeconomic status, and they're extremely passionate. Mm-hmm. I was a school teacher for 20 years.
Okay.
And that's one thing that I saw these kids that were extremely passionate and they were always in trouble.
Yeah.
But as soon as they find their niche, they become phenomenal. So I see a very passionate group of kids in El Paso that are just hungry for something, but unfortunately they get introduced to the wrong things. If we could just reintroduce them to something that maybe, there's some kids that are really artistic.
Right.
I volunteer for this program called the ShowCap program. ShowCap, and these are kids that are that get into trouble, and it's like a second chance. And so we take these kids under our wing. We're able to help them. Some of these kids have gotten in trouble with the law, either drug trafficking or just different things like that. And they're extremely passionate, and they turn. But as soon as we find their niche and we help them with that niche, they just fly towards good and become good, productive citizens.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this isn't something we talked about, outside of the program. The ShowCap project. Is there like a website if people are listening and they're inspired?
Yes. So there's this man by the name of Kyle Williamson. So Kyle Williamson was the special agent in charge of the DEA, and so he retired from the DEA. And at the time, I was the area director for FCA. Okay. And he wanted to volunteer for us because he wanted to make an impact. Well, he started volunteering, and his passion for these group of kids was so great that he became he started this group here in El Paso. Okay. And man, he involved me in it, and let me tell you what it stands for. I always forget what it stands for, the ShowCap program. But yeah, it's. Let me see. I'm so sorry. I'm Googling it now.
Yeah, but there is a website. What we'll do is this program we do put on KELPradio.com. So it'll be out early next week, and here we have it. I'm putting on my reading glasses. ShowCap.
Yes.
OJP.gov.
Yes.
Government. Okay. So I feel like your story is so inspirational. And it's inspirational for those of us who maybe forget that these little things we do for other people do have an impact.
Yes.
And it's inspirational for those of us maybe here who are listening all around the borderland who might feel like we're forgotten.
Yes.
And so there's so much to tease out and learn from your story. So I really appreciate that you came in. Look for ojp.gov online and find out about that. It's SHOCAP, ShowCap. And I love the fact that you were mentored by so many people. So many people took an interest in you, and you're doing that now.
Yes.
Love that. So thank you for that. And also, people I'm sure can find you at your company, Hub.
Yes, Hub International.
Hub International. If you need business insurance, reach out to Jose for a quote. English or Spanish, he's good for both ways. Yeah. But really appreciate you coming in today.
Thank you so much.
This has been a story that everyone in the borderland needs to hear.
Amen.
And I do hope that they will listen. We will air this again tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. and it'll be available on KELPradio.com starting next week in podcast format. Thanks again, Joe, for coming in. This has been 915 Talk.
You have been listening to 915 Talk on KELP Christian Radio. To listen to past recordings of 915 Talk, just visit KELPradio.com and click on the 915 Talk link. Until next time, love your neighbor, love your city, and give God all the glory.